see.
The
Okay,
stream is
we
live.
are. Yeah, we are live now, Christian.
Hello, everybody. Hey.
Hi, everyone. This is the latest live stream on the Scholar Gypsies. I'm delighted to have Christian Morris. Most of you will know his last video with us was very popular, and his TV or his video output is on Christian Morris TV, and I think that's Odyssey, isn't it, Christian?
On Odyssey, yeah. I'm on Odyssey now because YouTube censor everything I put up. So Odyssey kind of reminds me of the old days of YouTube. Do you remember the early years of YouTube when you could put anything up you wanted? And they don't censor anything on Odyssey. Odyssey doesn't have any base in the European Union. So McEntee can't get an injunction that's enforceable against them. So Odyssey is great. Odyssey is really good. Christian Morris TV on Odyssey. I didn't get my sign up today for some mysterious reason, but hey.
You have the light above your head, so that's even better.
Yeah, the light above my head.
Of the sunlight. So what we're going to do, everybody, today is I've asked Christian to come on here, and we're going to go through the list of candidates on the ballot in Midlands NorthWest, and I think it's quite a good exercise for the average, normal voter going into a polling station next Friday won't know 10 or 11 of the candidates on the ballot sheet, and I see a lot of commentary online about what to do, whether they should vote to 27 or just vote for their top 2 or 3. So whether that happens or not, that's up to the people. So we're just going to go through the list of people here alphabetically, and we'll give our preference and hopefully have a bit of crack doing it as well. So the first guy up, Christian, is the infamous Justin Barrett from the National Party.
Oh, I'm giving him. But you see, I can't vote in your constituency, so let's pretend now I live in Midlands NorthWest. I live in the constituency of Dublin for my sins, and you may have heard about 2 weeks ago I chased Sinead Gibney and the Social Democrats out of the car park of Supervalue Sutton. You know, they're not upmarket enough for Holt and Sutton. We're very fucking fussy about the people who we allow around. I asked Gibney. I says to her, "Do you believe a child is born in the wrong body?" She said, "Sometimes." Oh
Lord.
Oh. Then she said, "I find your tone very aggressive." You find my fucking tone aggressive, do you, girlfriend? Do you want to go down to Darndale or fucking Ballymun and tell them you find their fucking tone aggressive? I'll try to teach you fucking aggressive tone. So I chased this. It took me less than 3 minutes to shut down the Social Democrats at Supervalue Sutton. Don't talk to me. Let's talk about Justin Barrett anyway. I mean, I'd always give, let's just pretend now I live in your constituency. I'd give Barrett a vote. I'm not sure I'd give him my number one. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure. But then you look at cranks, like people be saying, far right, Justin Littler. They all call him Littler because he is fucking tiny, in fairness, you know. But they are far right. But then you look at the fucking cranks who we have in government, and he's the most Dolores Cahill, batshit crazy candidate could not be as mad as the fuckheads we have in government, like O'Gorman or Micheál, any of them. We are governed by insane lunatics. So I'll give Justin Barrett a vote. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I think I'll give Justin Barrett my number 2. Actually, we have 2 National Party candidates running here. James Reynolds. There's some weird fight going on within the National Party because they're both kind of leaders, or one of them's claiming they're the leader and the other. I heard Justin Barrett on a live stream and I thought, do you know what? He sounds kind of coherent, and I kind of felt sorry for him because they seem to be trying to elbow him out of that party. I don't know the details, so I'm happy to be corrected on that if I'm wrong. But I'd say give Justin Barrett number 2. Okay. Next up is Neil Blaney from the aristocratic Fianna Fáil family dynasty mafia.
Gets nothing because there was a great video of Blaney bitching away with Micheál Martin and Cynthia Ní Muricú. Like, Cynthia Ní Muricú needs to go back to the fucking 1990s and keep presenting Eurovision or presenting TV programs, shit like that in the 1990s. Stay the fuck out of politics, Ní Muricú. So anyway, Cynthia Murphy, that's what her fucking name is. So she's a barrister, I think. You should stick to that. Stick to being a barrister. But anyway, there's this great video of Blaney being like a total whiny little bitch to Micheál Martin. Well, you didn't give me enough coverage, so you didn't. And Micheál Martin is going, oh, well, we're not going to, where's your humanity? We're not going to discuss this now. Well, why are we going to discuss it at all? Well, so we will. And, Cynthia Ní Muricú is then saying, Cynthia Ní Muricú has this kind of Barbie look in her face. Barbie at the age of 65. Barbie on fucking free travel and hormone replacement tablets. Cynthia Ní Muricú says, well, let's all try and keep it civil. And just the sheer fucking unprofessionalism of them was a joy to see. No, and actually now, who would I give my number one to in your constituency? This is a spoiler alert. John Waters, of course, I'd give John my number one in your constituency. I think a lot of us who are on the same page would. But one of the things that John referred to was the need, when you're voting now, to kill the vote after the candidates you want. So don't be going down the ballot sheet, because otherwise you'll end up with fucking Simon Harris getting made Taoiseach on the 15th count, being elected in Ballygo, wherever it was. So, yeah, go on.
Did you like the scene yesterday where Simon Harris nearly headbutted 99 down in Castlebar?
If it's the Burkes, I like it.
Yes. Someone
if
pushed
it's
him
the
in the
Burkes,
back.
I like it. If it's the Burkes, I like it, because then again, Thomas Sheridan, who I've everybody knows, I'm a big fan and supporter of Thomas Sheridan. He has blown hot and cold about the Burkes over the past. But one of the things that I've said, and I've said it including in debates with Thomas, is that we are dealing with a fucking insane situation. So we're dealing, for example, one of the things that the Burkes are up against is the cult of transgenderism. And Enoch Burke himself really went headlong into that. Like nowhere else in the world, Burke went headlong into the cult of transgenderism. You need lunatics to sort out a lunatic cult. Well, we've got the Burkes. The Burkes are doing it. And they're afraid of nobody, and they bend the knee to nobody, and they defer to nobody. So this is why I'm a major fan of the Burkes. I understand Thomas Sheridan's reservations that he has about them, which I think are, in fact, probably quite valid. But I'm seeing a different picture and a bigger picture in that, look, we're dealing with this fucked up cult, and the Burkes are fucking it up on them. Cool. Did you see the video of the Burkes at the Church of Ireland Synod?
Yes.
That's great, isn't it? That never grows old, the Burkes at the Church of Ireland Synod. And the way she walks in, and you're one of her, Josiah or Vanaya or whatever he's called. I don't know the names of all her the rest of the brood, really. He's holding the loudspeaker, and she has a mic. And, I do not like breaking up the synod this way. And, she has a great speaking voice, Martina has. And then this old geezer comes and he pulls out the plug of the microphone. This little owl comes and the Church of Ireland, the owl unplugs the microphone. It's great the way they broke up the Church of Ireland Synod. Let's get on to the candidates, so and me stop waffling.
Okay, my personal favourite, AJ Cahill of the Irish People Party.
No.
Ken Fall.
That's a no from me, because if you listen to Cahill, he blows hot and he blows. I may be wrong, and he can correct me on this. And I would be obliged if he respond to this. If he wants to come on my podcast to argue with me, I'm now extending that invitation to him. But what I see of Cahill is that he is sitting on the fence somewhat. And you wonder, is he just going to go with the prevailing wind? In other words, one of the things that we're all aware of is that in the past 2 to 3 years, particularly in the past year, the alt movement has really grown momentum here. This is what John Waters predicted for a long time ago, actually. John has been ahead of all of us in that regard. And I wondered, does Mr. Cahill just want to go with the fair weather? Where there's the likes of John Waters, for example, is the first, and the likes of myself, who've been calling out bullshit in the establishment since 2019. And we're not changing our position. And I mean, one of the things people will acknowledge about me is that even if you're a friend of mine, I will civilly disagree with you. And I'll do it in quite a forthright way, in a civil way, but also forthright. So that's how, for example, Thomas Sheridan and I had disagreements in the past about Enoch Burke and the Burke family. We're still great friends, Thomas Sheridan and I. But, with AJ Cahill, I wonder, is he just saying what he thinks will be popular?
Well, yeah, I don't. My thoughts on that were done in a video, and I won't expound on that. From 4 months ago, but he'd be getting a low vote, like he'd be in the 20s for me, because I don't think he's running a campaign either. I don't see any posters He's running as an MEP and a local, and I don't see any posters for him. I see plenty of Irish People posters around the place, but no candidates. So that'll be that with him. Next one is Nina Carberry. Does that register with you now, Nina Carberry?
No.
You see, she's a very famous national hunt jockey, retired, won the
Oh,
Irish
that's a
Grand
Fine
National.
Gaeler. She's the blue shirt.
Yeah, so
Oh,
she's one of those for me that would
next.
be, yeah, but she's here's the way I look at that now, is she's someone I would have considered voting for or given a vote for if she didn't fall on top of her head a few times down in Leopardstown and jump in with Fine Gael.
Yeah.
Because she's seriously talented. She's like, to be a national hunt jockey, you have to be the bravest people on earth to do that job. But obviously, I can't vote for her because she's jumped in with those lunatics in Fine Gael. But yeah, that's Nina.
Next.
Peter Casey. You must have an opinion on this dude.
Next.
Well, we're not going to go next just yet. One thing to note, and this is for relevant to John Waters, because he's likely to be like, he got 50,000 votes in the last European election.
Casey did.
He did, yeah. So John, this dude could affect John because he's up there in Donegal, and Donegal, I think, is going to be a stronghold for John Waters in this election. So he's a candidate I'd be saying John Waters needs to be ahead of after the first count. So if you're up in Donegal, and me, like, I do live down here, like, John would be number one on my list of candidates. That is to bear in mind. You know, I think Peter Casey's not anyone. I wouldn't have voted for him 5 years ago, and I definitely won't vote for him now.
Let's talk about Casey. No, let's be more serious and talk about Casey. I was being a bit flippant there, but go next, because that is what I would say about him. Peter Casey's controlled opposition, and he I mean, I gave him actually my number one in the presidential vote, and I don't regret it because there was fuck all choice in that election. We ended up with Bilbo Baggins the fuck anyway. I think it was Gemma who actually forced it to a vote. They wanted to do it like Macaulay and have him just kind of crowned for a second term. But we got an election, which was, in my opinion, a very important feature of 2018. We got a presidential election. I think Gemma O'Doherty forced a hand on that, in fairness. And I voted for Peter Casey simply because he was the best of a bad lot, really. The rest of them were woke bullshit candidates and Higgins and that, you know. So that was why I voted for him. But he's very much a controlled opposition, and he's very much neutered opposition. So he goes on RTE and he says what he has to say, and a Social Democrat calls him a clown, and the whole canteen in RTE and all of the social clap. And, you know, Casey is presenting to the people who still fucking follow RTE, which is a significant number, that there's no point really in following this idiot on his line of politics because, you know, look at what he's like, and even a Social Democrat could denigrate him. They're not going to let Andy Heisman on against the Social Democrats because he'd eat them. You know what I mean? Or Ross Lahive, or any of the Syria, or John. But they're not going to let any of the ballsy characters on. So they let on this neutered, dull, bland, which Peter Casey's, ultimately Peter Casey's bland. And, you know, they let him on, and then the Social Democrats call him a clown, and then everybody votes for hard left candidate. So no, Peter Casey's controlled opposition. Absolutely not. No thanks. And I agree with what you said there. That is where John is at risk, that constituency of Donegal, because they vote tribally. They don't vote with their heads, they vote with their hearts, which is why they've elected dipshit politicians for God knows how long, who've allowed the infrastructure of the county to fall apart and the place to be fucked up at bungalows. You know, they're reaping what they're sowing in Donegal. There's no railway to fucking Donegal. There's no fucking motorway to Donegal. And they elect gobshite, inbred, retard politicians in Donegal. So, you know, Donegal's a problem. The people are lovely. I'm very familiar with them.
Yeah, you know, well, like that has been the county that's pushed back against all of the stuff over the last 4 years. If you were to get a percentage of the people that are kind of clued into what's generally going on. I'd say most of them are in, like a high percentage of them are in Donegal. So I think that
They're
could be
great
good.
people. If you ever go to Donegal, the people are intelligent and fun and friendly and kind, and they're very, very friendly, kind, considerate people. There's a lovely ethos in Donegal, lovely, lovely ethos in Donegal, but they keep voting for fuckwit politicians.
Oh, yeah. Right, so that's Peter Casey. Our next, I'm sure you're going to love our next one, is Fianna Fáil Senator Lisa Chambers.
Oh, is she related to that gimp?
What gimp?
Jack Chambers.
Ooh, I'm not sure. Oh, I don't know, actually, the answer to that, but I can find it out while we're on. But she's married to a Fine Gael politician, and she said one, like, she's a definite no for me, down, like,
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, once I see Fianna Fáil, that's no.
She made some muttering about the hate speech legislation in the Shannon, but it was one of these, like, kind of after the fact things where
Like
it was
Captain
almost
Connolly. Like Captain
yeah,
Connolly. Yeah.
So definitely one thing to note in Midlands NorthWest is Fianna Fáil are running 3 candidates spread out around the constituency. It's designed to get 1 seat. And we'll get to the next candidate, Fianna Fáil, soon. Again, that's a threat. I think John Waters can transfer well from Fianna Fáil candidates like Blaney.
Oh, I'd say he could. Missing you. You've gone.
You there?
Yeah, you went. There was just a break in it there now. Anyway, carry on. He could transfer well from candidates like Blaney. Go on.
From some of the Fianna Fáil candidates like Blaney and Barry Cowan, who'd be attracting an old school Fianna Fáil vote, but they're not, they're not happy with at all with this wokeness of, Micheál Martin, Donnelly, all those kind of.
Well, that's not good enough. That's not good enough, because what I'm saying to those Fianna Fáilers like Barry Cowan is that it's exactly what the Burkes would say to the Church of Ireland. Don't be speaking out about it or saying I didn't like it after the event. The time to speak out is when it's happening. So they all supported Micheál Martin, his Taoiseach. They all supported the hate speech laws. So they can go and fuck themselves as far as I'm concerned. Barry Cowan's a bullshitter. He just got in on the Cowan family ticket anyway. What, he's a fucking valuer? He's not even a fucking an auctioneer or something. He's a valuer. Fuck off, Cowan. No, they had to vote against the hate speech laws. They had to speak out against the hate speech laws. They didn't, so they're the enemy.
Yeah. Well, all I'm saying to you there is people that vote 1 for him might vote 2 or 3 for John. So I think that's there might be a rich vein of votes there for John, hopefully. And hopefully they don't get too many number 1s either, is what I mean. My personal favorite is Ming Flanagan. This guy has been in Europe for 10 years and basically sold out the people that voted him in. What's your views on Ming?
Yeah, he's another Catherine Connolly. He's another one of those. Oh, look at me! Look how left wing I am, and hey, I'm based on the level, but vote for hate speech laws and and also Ming Flanagan has a real thing for Palestine. So sorry, that's a no for me. I think Connolly is a Palestine lover. Connolly would be a Palestine licker. She'd be a real Hamas licker. Now Connolly, I'm bitching about Catherine Connolly, and I shouldn't be because she's not running. She's a TD, which is a bit unfair of me to do that. But I'm just. I use her as an example of a classic example of the supposedly based candidate who's nothing of the sort. And Flanagan would be similar. Flanagan is hard left, and he's a Hamas licker, and he's no, and also he's into weed. So sorry, that's another no for me as well. It's the weed thing.
Yeah, and again, I would say, in terms of a John Waters path to victory, Ming voters should be considering John Waters. So I'd say if you're watching this stream and you're wondering, you're not happy with Ming, John Waters is definitely a candidate you should probably be looking at for that vote, because it's, the base of people that came around John for this election were farmers, fishermen, that kind of stock, and they all got fooled. And the reason they came around him is they all got fooled by Ming and because Ming is to give Ming his due, he is really smart, like in a kind of lazy sense. He comes up with
Oh yeah.
He comes up with clever ideas, but he's as lazy as the day is long, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
The next lad, now this will be interesting. Stephen Garling, I think his name is. I don't even know who this character is. Let me see if I can pull him up. He's an independent.
Okay.
And that's as much as I know. So this would be a good example of somebody that I have no idea about anything to do with his candidacy, other than he's on the ballot. So he'd be getting no vote for me. He's not registered with me. Is he registered with you?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't know who he is or what he stands for.
Right.
So I'd have to play. I suppose go and look. What's his name? What's his surname?
Garland.
Stephen Garland. No, I don't. That doesn't in any way register with me, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, so yeah, I'd say that would be a no vote. Like, there's no vote to be given to somebody like that. Sinn Féin are up next. Michelle Gildernew, I think, is her name. What's your feeling on? Yeah,
100%. Absolutely not. No, I think Stephen Garland is from Granard native. Stephen Garland is running in the Midlands NorthWest constituency in the forthcoming European elections. And he is running on awareness of multiple sclerosis as he seeks election for the European Parliament. He's running on a platform based on disability issues. Okay, I'd give him a low vote. Fair enough. I'd give him. He's pushing the issue of disability. Disabled people get treated very badly in Ireland. The elderly get treated very badly. If he's pushing that, he'd get a low vote from me. He seems to be an independent candidate. However, there is the issue of our hospital facilities being taken up by illegal immigrants and taken up by spongers who claim to be from certain parts of Eastern Europe. And I want, just looking back at Garland there, he may be a completely commendable individual. And I'm sure that he's very sincere in what he means. But we need to address the bigger issue of the open borders flooding this country with the wrong... Like, the kind of person who wants to come to Ireland because we offer great social welfare benefits and we don't check up on people is the very last type of person we want to have. Yet McEntee and all these are flooding the country with spongers like that and then saying that we're all engaging in hate speech for questioning it, as is RTE. So if I would say that Garland, although he seems to be running quite a commendable issue there, that has to be addressed. Now, moving on. Who are we moving on to? Michelle Gildernew of Sinn Féin. Yeah, no, not a nice person. Like Sinn Féin, we must remember, is the political wing of the Provisional IRA who ruined the lives of very many innocent people over a very long period of time with violence, with criminality, with organised crime. For me, Michelle Gildernew is inextricably linked to that. So that's a big no from me.
I would say, generally speaking, without going, just based on Sinn Féin over the last 4 years, I don't know much about her myself, but Sinn Féin to me seemed no different and possibly could be worse than what we have in government at the moment.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're a cult and they're hard left and they're very anti-Jewish. They're anti-Semitic. I'll stand over that remark, by the way. They're they're pro-Hamas. Well, I mean, Hamas and them have an awful lot in common, killing innocent civilians who are going about their chores or enjoying themselves. They've so much to share, haven't they, Sinn Féin and Hamas? So, no, like what happened in Israel on the 7th of October is a do or die moment for me, as far as I'm concerned. You either condemn what they did in Israel on the 7th of October last year, or you're a Hamas supporter. That sounds very black and white on my part, but sometimes these things are black and white.
I don't know. All I know about, I purposely have not gone into the Israel Palestinian rabbit hole over the last 6 months, and I'm glad I didn't in a certain way. Is that it's, for some reason, the Palestinian cause has been, if immigration is the number one issue, this Palestinian conflict seems to be quite high on people's priority list, which is surprising to me given the state the country is
That's
in.
right. I agree with you absolutely. What we need to do with Palestine and Israel is we need to agree to disagree, and we need them to put it to one side and not let ourselves be, as you absolutely correctly analyze, it's a rabbit hole. It's a cul-de-sac. It's a distraction. The Israelis don't want us to support them. The Israelis just want us to stay out of it. They look after themselves. Stay out of it. No, I agree with you 100%. It's a rabbit hole. It's a distraction. It's a cul-de-sac. It's a dead end. It's not our problem, and we have more than enough to worry about here.
Mm-hmm. The next up is Rory Hearn. He's a social democrat.
No.
Yeah. He's a big no for me too. This is the type, this actually speaks to me of the kind of person social democrats are going after. He's associate professor and senior lecturer of social policy in Maynooth University.
A lecturer of social policy. He's a lecturer of social. That just sounds like a fucking social democrat wet dream. That just sounds like, he's the Ivana Bacik of the fucking social democrats. He has a big. The only problem is he's not a woman, but Saoirse Mackin looks after that. Just fucking turn yourself into a woman. If you're not a woman, turn yourself into him. Do it the Saoirse Mackin way, But oh no. I mean, the social democrats really are a distillation of everything fucked up about woke in Ireland. They are kind of lycra wearing, vegan, climate changey, cyclisty, transgender, no gender, non-binary, 3-binary, 7-spirit, they're just fucked up, the social democrats are. They left Labour because Labour wasn't fucking woke enough for them.
Yeah, so that is that's a low 20s vote anyway. It's a no vote actually for most people, because I think the point you made there really is just vote for the people you really want to get in.
I'll tell you an interesting anecdote. Like for the first MEP debate on RTE, I think it was last week or slightly earlier, John Waters mentioned on his Substack that he got a letter from RTE saying, we've decided not to put you on because we just really don't want to. That's what they said. We've decided not to put you on because we really don't want to. And they had all the hard left candidates on, plus Peter Casey, to make them pretend that they're being balanced. And the Social Democrats were bitching because they weren't on. And as somebody said, yes, it's absolutely imperative that there has to be a 9th hard left candidate on. And what the Social Democrats were doing, they were saying lots of people are complaining about the unfairness of this election. And people replied to the Social Democrats who they haven't blocked, because the Social Democrats block fucking everyone like Harris does. People replied to them and said, that's disingenuous. You're making out that people are objecting to the choice of that debate because they didn't choose a 9th hard left candidate. They're objecting to the choice of that debate because RTE chose all their friends. That's why people are objecting to that debate, because RTE chose all their friends. I do think something has happened. I think a growing quorum of people, including within our echo chamber, because we are in an echo chamber and they won't let us out of it.
Yeah,
we want to get out of this echo chamber.
I agree that.
And they won't let us out of it. But an increasing number of people who are not in the echo chamber is saying, hold on, we see the same old fucking faces on RTE all the time. One example is Aidan Reardon, who goes by the stage name Aon O'Riordan. That's his stage name. His real name is Aidan Reardon.
I think he was or is married to Anya Kerr. Sorry, I think he is or was married to Anya Kerr of the Kinsen fame.
Yeah, and Aon O'Riordan is never off RTE. He is never off RTE. And I identified that myself in my podcast on my Odyssey channel, Understanding the Montrose List 1. And my subheading is How the RTE Canteen Influences the Democratic Process in this Country. So I had a podcast about that in January of this year. And, that is, for me, more than the immigration, which is a very important issue, more than so many of these other things. For me, and the hate speech law, which obviously is a very important issue as well. For me, the crookedness and criminality of RTE is, for me, the number one electoral issue. And how RTE... Go on.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting because I was chatting to John after John was in Tuam. I was chatting to him afterwards, and John, and like you say, he tends to be ahead of the curve on like a lot of things. But one of the things he was thinking is that this could be the first election where you could get elected without reference to the mainstream media. just based off the
I would
alternative.
love that to be the
candidate.
case.
What do you think of that?
I would love that to be the case. I would say to people, even if it doesn't happen on this occasion, we are engaged now in a much more positive and active process than we were previously. So things are happening now in a way that they haven't been happening previously. But, and I say that to encourage people, if you don't get elected this time, if it doesn't go your way this time, that's not the end of the world, and don't give up.
Fair enough. Listen, the next candidate up is independent Charlotte Keenan. Has she registered on
Let's
your
look her up here.
she's
Charlotte.
She's a sports psychologist, songwriter, artist. She's from Tullamore in County Offaly, and the best thing this candidate has going for her, in my opinion, is that she has yet to respond to questions from the journal.
Okay, good. That's
it would seem to me that there's quite a few of these candidates. They're local candidates who run European, so they might be known in the county of Offaly, but outside of it, nobody.
It doesn't appear. Keenan does not appear to have any blurb up, so it's again, I can't comment on her.
Yeah, so
really.
It's exactly, there's nothing to like. The little bit of research I was trying to do on her this morning.
Let's look at the info here. Let's see what it says here about Charlotte Keenan. For my sins, I actually, would you believe that I subscribe to the Irish Independent online?
Don't be getting rid of my fucking subscribers by saying things like that now.
Dreadful. It's appalling. It's the only thing that is good in the Irish Independent. I know I can't get up the candidate. Sorry, look.
No, it's grand. She's, it's just one of those things that
look.
The best of luck to her. Next up is someone we all know, Herman Kelly of the Irish Freedom Party.
Yeah, I'll give him a vote. Yeah, 100%, because he's he's on our page really, so he's on our side of the fence here. So yeah, you get a vote. He gets a very bad press. Kelly does. And again, one of the problems on our side can be a lack of professionalism. Now, that's very harsh of me. That's a harsh remark of mine to make. I've made it, but immediately I'm kind of clawing back on it. We don't have the money and resources and the influence that the Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, Labour, etc., the Greens have. They have RTE in their back pocket. They have the Irish Times in their back pocket. None of us does. So how can we run professional campaigns when the pitch is so badly skewed against us? So, where previously up to 2 years ago, I just said, they're all kind of cranks and they don't run a professional campaign. It would be more fair to say they can't run a professional campaign because the pitch is so badly skewed against them. So, for example, a police officer in Germany was murdered over the last 2 days by an Islamist. And RTE is saying that he was murdered at a far-right rally. RTE is telling lies about what happened to that poor German policeman who was murdered by an Islamist. So that's what you're up against. That's how badly skewed the pitch is. You're dealing with mainstream media who remorselessly tell lies. Herman Kelly may be the best candidate, the most articulate, credible, erudite man in the world, and they just make him look bad.
One thing I'd say about Irish Freedom Party, I think they've actually done, they've run the most professional of the smaller nationalist parties. They're the ones that have registered, in my mind, the most in this campaign. Michael Leahy in Ireland South now. He's like, his campaign looked to be run like probably better, especially early on, than Herman's. He was certainly getting a lot of virality recently, and newspaper coverage. So I'd say they have a chance. Like, I'd say I'd have her. I'll give them a vote in the top 5 anyway.
100% vote. Yeah, I mean, he's on our page.
Yeah. So that's Herman. Who's next up? Oh, this is, don't know if you've heard of this guy, Fergal Landy. He's a Labour candidate, but I just wanted to read out this guy's top 3 priorities. Okay. 1, a clear line of accountability between citizen and EU, a rights-based approach to public service, an economy that serves society, not the other way around. And I'd love to know what kind of a society he has in his head that we all live in. Like, it's that kind of blurb from the Labour Party that would drive you mental. Like there's nothing in it. It's like civil servant speak.
Well, it is, and it's word salad. And Ivana Bacik, who is now the leader of the Labour Party, thinks it's 2004. She's still trapped in a time warp of 20 years ago. So she's one of these. John Waters actually said it recently. Mary Robinson was the archetype. Mary Benotti was another example, kind of older example. But Ivana Bacik is a classic example of this Irish woke academic woman who's just used to speaking ex cathedra, and she goes on RTE and blah blah blah, and rights based, and diversity and blah blah, and stakeholders and inclusivity, blah blah blah. And they talk all this bullshit, and then everybody goes home and fuck all happens. So she thinks it's 2004. It's not. But they're just so used to having RTE blow smoke up their fucking asses. So, for example, if you look at how there's a really good video, I think it's Stephen Kerr and Suzanne, I don't know her surname, politely questioning Roderick O'Gorman, and he just runs away from them. The Burkes are less polite with it. The Burkes aren't threatening to Harris, but the Burkes are more forthright. And the problem with the likes of O'Gorman and Harris is that they're so used to just accepting. They operate in this cloud this bubble, where if they say something on RTE, that makes it proven fact and there's no further argument. And that would have worked in 2004. And, up to kind of the economic crash in 2008, when people began looking a bit closer at things because they were losing their money. And times were comfortable relatively up to 2008. And people will only question things, when they start losing money. Okay, there's the likes of us who are watching what's going on. But Joe Normie isn't going to fucking give a shite until he starts seeing that he's losing money, or that something else is affected, like civil liberties.
Well, you see, it's the political class talk about the economy, where we're talking about the nation.
That's right.
And that's why it's always framed. So it is, you're 100%, you're right there, because that normal world won't start noticing the nation until it's kicked out of the economy, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
That's right. And another thing that worries me, aside from the fact that we have a criminal media, that's a big issue for me. But a broader issue for me is human rights and civil liberties, because our human rights and our civil liberties have been stolen from us in the past 10 to 15 years. They have been trampled on, really, and people don't know what's going on. John Waters does. If you want to find somebody who's very switched on about the trampling on of human rights, it's John Waters. He was ahead of everybody in that regard. John, particularly, one of the things that John Waters has been highlighting since really the 1990s is the corruption and the barbarity of the family law courts. And they're corrupt and barbaric, the family law courts are. And those are other very important issues as well. But you must accept, and I'm sure you do, we all accept, Joe Normie doesn't give a shiny shite about them until it comes knocking at his door.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the hope at the moment is still the case, that like that Joe, if we call it that Joe Normie, they're starting to reach out and look around a bit, but this election might be coming a bit too early for them. Anyway, Sinn Féin, Chris McManus, second candidate for Sinn Féin. No. Sinn Féin have a seat in this constituency. So that's a down no. That's a big no from Christian. It's a no for me as well. Sinn Féin are a threat to John McWater's candidacy as well. Like, based, northwest. When we say the northwest part of this constituency, that's where their stronghold votes, and along the border counties. Anyway, next up is there's an Ireland First candidate, Margaret Maguire.
Oh yeah, she gets
a vote. She get a vote for me too. Yeah, I don't know exactly where, but yeah,
she's on our side. She's on the team, so she gets a vote. I mean, I was interviewed a very nice woman, Jean Murray, the other day. And you don't agree with everybody about everything, but if they're on our basic side of the fence, then they're getting a vote. Jean is running in the local elections in Dublin. She won't be running in my constituency. But, you don't agree with everybody about everything, but they're on our side of the fence. So, yeah, that's a yes from me.
Yeah. And I think Derek Bly, to give him his due, has run...
Mm-hmm.
probably run the best campaign. It might be a 2-year campaign, but it's
Yeah,
he's I think he's I would be I think he's going to win a seat.
I hope he
I think
does.
I'm yeah, I'm coming around to the idea that he's in with a big shout down there.
Derek is a great guy, and he came on the channel here with me. I was just doing my podcast, where I just do it to the screen with a card in front of it, and my phone rang. It was Derek, so I put him on speakerphone. I interviewed him. Do you remember that? I gave him an interview on the channel here, and Derek is great, and he's articulate, and he's lively, and he's feisty, and he has charisma. And
Yeah,
this is actually, I'm glad you've raised Derek Bly there, because Derek I agree with you absolutely. Derek is electable, isn't he? There's an electable quality to Derek. And
he's
go on.
No, all I was going to say about Derek is, he's electable, he's smart, he can get a point across in a simple manner.
Oh yeah, he's articulate, isn't he?
And he's photogenic at all counts as well, and he's basically done the legwork. He's out there.
You've made some very important points there. You've made some very important points there. A lot of people don't realize to get elected, you have to break your back in the process of campaigning. In other words, I remember an absolute spanner, Terence Flanagan, an absolute tool, Terence Flanagan, got elected in my constituency years ago, and he was out at 6 a.m. at the local dart stations in Dublin. He was out at the bus stations. He was out campaigning to get his seat from 6 a.m. to about 7 or 8 at night in the 4 to 5 weeks before the election. Terence, he had banners up, he had cars, he was giving out leaflets, all paid for himself. He spent his own money. I remember that about Flanagan. He didn't, he's an idiot. The man's an NPC. He's inarticulate. He's uninformed. He's a fucking idiot, Terence Flanagan is. But he created such a visual rumpus around himself that in the normies going, oh yeah, Flanagan, and he got transfers and he got elected to the Dáil, and then people realized they'd elected Forrest fucking Gump. And, but that was secondary to the fact. And Derek understands that. Derek understands you have to be fucking visible. You have to get out there and be fucking seen. And even if it's controversial, it's what, Malcolm McLaren said, there's no such thing as bad publicity. 100%. Like, look at the Burks. Look at you can't escape from the fucking Burks. The Burks pop up like fucking mushrooms when you least them pop up. Oh, it's the Burks. But the Burks are visible, and they're also very iconic. When you look at the Burks with their serious faces and their suits and their dark clothes and their glasses, you fucking know the Burks they're a real visual image. The Burks are, and I'm digressing slightly, but the Burks are real punks, and they don't give a shit. The Burks do if they think they're right. You don't want to get on the wrong side of the fucking Burks, and they have this image of the glasses and all tall and serious looking, and the suits and that. But they have an incredible image. The Burks do, and it's a very unique image the Burks have. And Derek Bly, I'm not comparing him necessarily to the Burks, but what Derek knows is you have to get out there and be fucking seen. And you have to get out and canvass, and you have to get out and meet people, even if it ends up with people arguing with you or them calling you a cunt.
He's not afraid of that, to be fair.
He's not afraid of that.
It's not everybody, and this is one thing I'll say, and we'll move on to the next candidate, is this, watching this election on Twitter is like being on like the set of a fucking Netflix documentary series. This is how the campaigning seems to be going. Yes. That nobody's actually fucking talking and knocking on doors, except people like so when Derek, it's even more noticeable that Derek is doing it, because a lot of other people aren't doing it, so anyway.
No, Derek does know something, and actually Nadine Dorries wrote about that in a book of hers about Boris Johnson, a very well written book. She said she was talking to an MP. This is in England. She was talking to an MP who said, "Oh, it's all over Twitter." And she said, "Have you gone out and campaigned around the constituency?" But Twitter says this and that. Stop, she said. Stop. Have you gone out and knocked on doors around the constituency or stood at supermarkets and railway stations? He said there's no need to do that, and he lost his seat.
Well, you see, it takes balls, and yeah. So listen to me. We're on to an independent, but who ran as a Green candidate in the last election, Saoirse McHugh. Now she got this lady. This lady came close. She got about 50,000 votes. So no.
Yeah, Saoirse McHugh. She's a fucking darling at the she's the canteen's answer to fucking OnlyFans, Saoirse McFucking Hugh. They love her in the canteen, don't they? So she got centre place in the debate. And, you know, she's an unlikable candidate. She's a crock of shit. You wouldn't vote for her in a fit. But the canteen said, we're getting Saoirse on. We'll get her up to Montrose. And there's some soy lattes for you. And there you go. And sure, we'll have a few things to show up your nose afterwards to celebrate. You're one of us, Saoirse. Come on. Oh, no, sorry. I have to put an RTE canteen voice. You've got to get Saoirse up. You're losing it. You still get Saoirse up. We're going to do debate tonight. We're going to do debate. Saoirse McHugh. Oh, Saoirse's lovely. Oh, Saoirse's lovely. Saoirse's lovely. We've got to get Saoirse up for the debate. Yeah. And the fact that nobody fucking likes her, or that she comes out with a really hard left wacko. No, we'll just do Saoirse's great. Yeah. Saoirse McHugh is about as electable as a burst fucking condom, but she never gets off RTE. She's a darling of RTE. She's a darling at the fucking Irish Times. And as I said, you know, I'd sooner vote for Roisin Ingle. And that's saying an awful lot.
So she's getting your number 2 then?
No. No.
Next up is I have a pet peeve with the next candidate, Independence Ireland, Kieran Malooly, ex-RTE
Oh, yeah, he's
man.
another RTE cunt, isn't he?
This is what I don't... let me get your opinion on this, because, like... Irish independents, I don't know what to make of them. I interviewed a few of them, and they seemed to be talking some of the right language. But when you go out and, you know, your number one pick is an RTE guy.
Yeah.
You're a new party, and your number one pick's an RTE guy.
Read the fucking room. Read the room. People don't fucking like RTE. They don't like RTE. And I've explained it on my podcast that there's a visceral antipathy towards RTE. And one of the reasons why is, particularly if you live outside of the areas where we could get British telly. So we were able to watch ITV, the BBC, Channel 4 when I was a kid. But if you are stuck over a barrel watching nothing but fucking RTE, what you realize is how they've kept you kind of in the dark with shite television programs, and the likes of Ryan Tubridy coming on at the age of 14, the likes of Simon Harris coming on at the age of 15. So it's a very, very bad look for them to start by putting somebody from the fucking canteen on. For me, that's a major no, because it shows that they're not reading the room. People hate RTE. They have to pay this poxy TV license to a crowd of coke addicts and pedophiles who only put their fucking friends on the screen. You know, fuck off. There's a growing... RTE are so out of touch, though. They're so badly out of touch that they don't realise that there is a visceral and emotional antipathy towards them out there. It's not necessarily logical, but most people are not logical. We go with our hearts, not our heads.
I go along with most of that. This is a candidate, I think, which will tell us the temperature of the room outside of, we'll say, our echo chambers.
You mean Malooly?
Yeah, I think, because if he gets elected, like on the polling at the moment, he's running on the... Now, polling comes with all sorts of health warnings, but the polling's showing him in the 5th seat at the moment, right? So my feeling is the polling is wrong, but he'll be a good bellwether in this sense, our temperature. If he gets elected fairly handily, that'll tell us the country's moved a little bit, but not as much as we'd like. And I think if someone like him gets elected, John mightn't get elected.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. I could see people saying, oh, well, John Waters is great and all of that. And I really... But sure, we'll go for the safe candidate. I'm sure isn't Kieran lovely, because he presented My Lovely Horse on RTE or something 5 fucking years ago.
Yeah.
You know, no, I agree with you. He's like Peter Casey. It's a Peter Casey controlled opposition spoiler, you know, and they have it very, as I said before, Catherine Connolly is the example of the controlled opposition spoiler candidate. That they're basically a safe bet, and you vote for them because you don't want to be going for John Waters because you fall right, etc.
Yeah, he's not. He's a controllable in a sense. Like,
That's
do you know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Next candidate is a guy.
George Lee would be an example of that as well.
Oh, yeah, don't even. Yeah,
Yeah,
Jesus.
you know what I
Forgot
mean,
about
though.
him. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Next candidate we won't spend much time on is People for Profit. Brian O'Boyle. I would say that is that a no? Yeah, that's a no for me. Moving swiftly on to Pauline O'Reilly of the Greens. She's from Galway. She's a senator.
I think,
Okay.
no, sorry. It's very important that the mentally handicapped should get a voice. But actually getting into the Shannon was a bridge too fucking far. Pauline fucking O'Reilly. Jesus. And she's the one who says, oh, we have to, it's in the common good to curtail rights. So we're not offending transgender people grooming children. No, fuck that. Pauline fucking O'Reilly. If they vote her in, they deserve whatever they get. The woman's an imbecile as well.
Okay, there is an opinion, not a fact.
Okay, sorry. That's my opinion. Let's just get the lawyers off our backs here. That's my opinion that Pauline, or all those things I said are my own personal subjective opinions about Pauline O'Reilly. If she wants to sue, she can send the writ to me. Get somebody who can spell to do it.
Daniel Pocock is an independent, as far as I can tell, who has a history in banking and software development. He sounds like a guy I would have been interested in 15 years ago when I was living in this world, and now I don't want to know anything about that type of
Let's look
character
at
getting
him
into
briefly.
politics.
Let's get a brief look at him. An independent candidate. He doesn't to put humans in charge of technology. He doesn't, he hasn't put very much out there. He looks a bit older, which I'm not holding that against him. He's worked for a number of banks, and in 2021 founded the Software Freedom Institute, whose aim is to assume that would, for me, would be a green tick, because he's getting at the issue of AI and software and technology being used to tyrannize people. So what I think he's hinting at there is that we should put in place protections to protect people from being tyrannized by that. So, it's a shame that we can't get more on those candidates. But maybe there is lots of shit for us to read and Google and that have filtered out that we can't get to it.
Do you think AI should be an issue in these elections? Maybe not European, but we'll say in general, because I think everybody that talks about AI talks about it as if it's just a problem that's just in front of us, whereas I think AI has already half destroyed humanity, going right back from to the beginning of the social media companies.
I think AI is I may be wrong about this, but I think AI is much ado about nothing. Because
I disagree.
Why do you disagree?
Because I think it's damaged people's capability to think. And
they were NPCs anyway. They were NPCs anyway.
I know. I think there's as many. We say that. I think there's a lot of people on our side that are the AI version of that, and I mean,
I know.
the capacity to. Let me give you an example. I'm sick of looking at Eddie Hobbs on his Twitter account complaining about the reach of his TikTok videos. Here we have a fucking intelligent guy talking about, his message on a platform like TikTok. But the whole problem I see with TikTok is 20-second clips. Your brain is inputting hundreds and thousands of pieces of information a day that it's not used to doing 15 years ago. So our capacity to kind of hold broader thoughts or broader thought processes, I think that's the number one reason. Like the biggest reason, Thomas, yourself, John, I think the biggest reason people listen to you is that expansive thinking, almost philosophical thinking, because it's so unusual.
I'll cut through you. What you're referring to, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, is dumbing down. So in other words, in 2018, I went to Claire Byrne Live. I was in the studio audience of Claire Byrne Live for what was going to be called a discussion on Scientology. And the whole thing lasted about 6 minutes and nobody was asked to speak. And one of the things that I try to do here on my platform is, and John Waters has mentioned it as well, up to the end of the 1980s, Channel 4 in the UK had a program called After Dark, which would go on indefinitely. There was nobody saying, well, that's all we've got time for. And I wanted, alongside John and many others, to create my own platform where we didn't have some cunt come along and saying, well, that's all we've got time for. I wanted to create an open platform. It's also, and to be earnest, it's one of the reasons why I use so much bad language, because I have 3 degrees in English, in various strands of English. I was an English teacher to Leaving Cert, honours. I can avoid using bad language if I choose to do so, but I use bad language deliberately because it's an exercise of freedom of speech. And the right to be offensive, the right to be vulgar, the right to be obscene in language is an important civil liberty, and it defines my channel because I'm saying to people, we're setting broad boundaries here. And it's kind of an open bear pit yard I'm trying to create here. And that is also articulated in the fact that I like to allow people on and give them 2, or in some occasions 3 or more hours in which we will expand on every topic, and it won't be rushed along. So I agree with you in that regard. I'm not sure it correlates directly to the existence of AI.
Well, I think it's worthy of a program on its own, that subject.
It is. I agree with you. Get back to me. We set the diary for that. Go on. But
so we're going on. The next candidate is an independent, Michelle. I find this woman interesting. Independent candidate Michelle Smith. She's living in the Neil. I think she's originally from Armagh. She runs a small accounting practice, but she was the face of the Ballon Road protests. She was involved in the protest. Outside a hotel, I think it was Gannon's Hotel, to stop, the 50 migrant males going in, the problem of our times. So I think, and she's this Michelle Smith, and it ties into what we just talk about, has had 44 million views of her videos on various social media platforms.
Okay.
Has she come on your radar?
No. Again, this is going to sound arrogant on my part, but when you're in Dublin, you have to be looking hard to get in people who are not from Dublin. So this is why I love getting in people who aren't in Dublin. I had Ross Lahive on the platform a while ago from Cork. I had Derek Bly from Cork. I want to hear from people who are outside of my Dublin bubble here. No, I haven't heard of her. She sounds interesting.
Okay. So I think she's someone I'd give a vote to now. Like, it wouldn't be 1 or 2. But if she's somebody.
I'd put her
now
down
here.
low.
Yeah, well, yeah, she'd be in the mids, maybe under 10, like in the first 10, maybe. Next one up, National Party second candidate in Midlands NorthWest is James Reynolds. So I suppose he'd be in there. I'll give him. I don't know who's the right or wrong of that argument that's going on there, but for the sake of unity, we'll throw him a vote. Next one up is Peadar Tóibín. Aintu. Thoughts?
I would, because Aintu, they're kind of the Senator Sharon Keoghan of political parties. Keoghan can sometimes be outstanding, and sometimes can be very iffy. But Keoghan, I'll always give time to Keoghan, for example, because of the fact that she questioned McEntee using Oireachtas privilege about the hate speech laws, and she made a complete fool of McEntee. So this is why anybody who's speaking out about the hate speech laws and against them. So Aintu have been at it a long time, and they're broadly on our page in that I'm not sure where they stand necessarily on open borders, on immigration, but in terms of social conservatism, Aintu would be good in that regard. They would be anti-woke, I think. They would certainly, or I'd expect that they would be opposed to transgenderism. And when we say we're opposed to transgenderism, I mean, in private groups, I've had this debate with women who are opposed to transgenderism. You have to repeal the Gender Recognition Act. And unless that's repealed, then you're not opposed to transgenderism. So that would be my question regarding Aintu. Aintu, I'd be looking at them from an Irish perspective and a perspective of social conservatism. Are they willing to deliver that, or are they going to be Catherine Connolly?
Well, this is it. We'll see. I always go back to the COVID question, or the vaccine question, and the vaccine passport era. They were weak. They were
They were. That's
weakish.
right.
They
were very
weren't
disappointing. I agree with you absolutely on that.
the weakest, but so that to me is there's a bit of wishy-washiness in there. I kind of Pather's a good speaker. He's pro-life and all that, so there'd be a good. I'd say there's a vote there for him.
Do
Again,
you
my
mean
worry
Tabine?
is
Let's not call politicians by the first name. Tabine. Tabine was a good.
that's the Thomas Sheridan thing.
Yeah. That.
What was I going to say? But the other thing with him is I worry about is that he's another guy that John Waters needs to be kind of aware of, because the voter for the Padre Tovine voter would also look at John Waters, is what I would say,
Yeah.
or they'd consider him. So, and for again, the referenda 40% that showed up in that, it'll be a question whether John, Pather, they're more comfortable with the likes of Pather or John, and hopefully it'll be John, but we'll see. The next candidate would get my number 27 vote is Maria Walsh of Fine Gael.
No.
You can't have missed this lady. Her
Unfortunately,
videos are everything.
I wish I had missed her, but dreadful individual and really egregious individual. Maria Walsh is, like, she's running as if it's 2021 when everything woke was running high, and I always reflect on 2021 really as being the high water mark of woke in this country. It was at its most strident, at its most objectionable, at its most offensive was in 2021. Walsh is an embodiment of all that fucking crap. She is an MEP, so RTE are absolutely wetting themselves over her, and she's a star of the canteen, etc. And this is how they game the match. So, I mean, she could well win her seat back just through incumbency, but she certainly doesn't deserve to.
No, so I'd be hoping there's no Fine Gael seat in our constituency, but if there is one, I'd prefer to see it go to Nina Carberry than to this person. So I would say I actually don't think there is a Fine Gael seat up for grabs here. But we'll see.
How many seats are there in your constituency?
There's 5. So
Okay.
we have Maria Walsh is a sitting MEP along with Ming, and what the Sinn Féin candidate, and I forget who the other one is, but Maria got the 4th. We have an extra seat in this time round, so there was only 4 the last time.
Yeah.
Maria McGuinness was the other one, but she left to go on to into full metal jacket craziness of the European Commission, and but Maria was the last one. Fighting out the seat with Peter Casey and the McHugh, that McHugh candidate. I would say she's in big trouble this time round, and I'd say Nina Carberry, based on just her name recognition around the constituency from being a jockey, will be a lot higher than Maria Walsh's. So that's the last point in them. Oh, the two we're back into. So we're down to the last 2. We're nearly there, and it's the 2 Waters, and the first is Gerry Waters.
Who's he?
Dr. Gerry Waters.
Right, but what's his political situation?
Do you know him? Do you know
No.
You know the name though?
I heard the name, but I don't know what he's about.
That's interesting. Now that's interesting. So he would have been one of the most vociferous doctors during COVID.
Against it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's a very, very big tick for me. Very big green mark for me.
He had a huge Twitter account that was taken down quite early.
Okay, cool.
And he spoke out. He spoke out very loudly, like, to be fair to him, and has been on it. But he's only recently got, like, with the advent of Elon Musk and the opening up of things a bit, I think he got back.
Yeah. Oh, look, if he's been out against COVID, then that's a big gold star for me.
That's interesting now, because it's interesting actually, because I thought I would have said his name recognition was really high, but maybe it isn't as high as I'm thinking it is. He's a high vote for me. He'd be in the top 5 as well for me.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
And the final candidate in the 2024 Euro elections is John Waters.
Number 1.
Number one, yeah, here as well. What I suppose, what's your feeling? Do you think he's going to make it, or who? If there's, of those list of candidates we left out, and we forget all the establishment ones, who do you think, if there's only one seat, who do you think is in the running for it? Based,
I have
we'll
no
say
idea. I have no idea, because if we look back at that referendum in March, initially we didn't know how it could go. Then, as the momentum grew, I began saying to myself, I think we may win this, and we may defeat the proposition here. We may defeat it by a percentage. We may defeat it by less than a percentage. Like, do you remember the divorce referendum in the 1990s? I think they said this could be I think we're going to do it. And then we did it by a huge landslide, and you could have blown me. You could knock me down with a feather over that. So elections, yeah.
That's a good point, because I think if there's a strong wind blowing in our favor, one candidate gets a seat. But if there's a really strong wind blowing in our favor, 2 or 3 candidates could get elected if it's a kind of tsunami type operation, and all the establishment parties get basically destroyed in the European elections. Now I think the locals will be a lot different, but so yeah, I think there's in a referenda type kick-in from the electorate, I'd say John does get elected. I'd say Pather gets elected, and possibly even Kieran Malooly gets elected. But if it's a fair, if it's only an elbow to the stomach, it's down between those 3 for 1 seat, possibly
the
2.
best I can say to both the candidates and to their supporters and anybody listening now and everybody is, the best I can say is, don't be disappointed if it doesn't go quite the way you might have expected it. It's a process. It has to go in a certain direction. Some years ago I ran for a residents' association. I got 1 vote. I ran to be chairman of a residents' association. I got to be 1 vote. I got 1 vote. I said at the time, I wrote a note to everybody saying, I believe that you all made the right decision. And that freaked them out more than anything. And they said, that's very gracious of you. No, I said, I believe you made the right decision because I believe in democracy. And I said, for whatever reason, you decided that you'd give 45 votes to him and 1 vote to me. But now I said, I believe, but why you've made the right decision will soon emerge, I'm sure, I said, and it did. But, I had no regrets about that. Yet you would think that I would be despondent about that particular result. And I'm not, but I won't. I will reserve my position on the performance after the vote of my opponent who was successful. I completely reserve my position on that. But what I would go back to everybody else and say is, this is what you voted for. So this is a process, and it's important to see it as a process. So I was asked recently, would I like to run again? I said, go fuck yourselves. I said, I'm not going to waste my time with that bullshit. So, you cannot force a person to run for election. You cannot force a person into this kind of thing. And this is an issue that's also growing in our society, that people are being forced into things that they don't want to do. There's a big issue out there that nobody's talking about. It's Fair Deal, which is the financing scheme for nursing homes. And if you look closer at that, that's an issue. And that's all I'll say. Now, regarding this election coming, we ourselves are in a bubble. We're in a goldfish tank ourselves.
I'll
give you another anecdote. I was up in a golf club or a golf course in Howth, having a cup of coffee in the bar, and I was talking to some golfy women who live in Howth, because they're very interesting to talk to, because they're very much in a different bubble from the one that you and me, John Waters, and our gang are in. And I said, well, who would you be voting for? And they all said, well, you don't know who to vote for. No, I said, you don't know who to vote for. Now, but you said, it's so confusing these days, right? I said, are you saying to me that you get all your information from RTE and you don't know how to process it anymore? And I wasn't being facetious with the woman. I was trying to tease her out on where her position came from. Well, she said, look at those independent candidates. Well, I said, do you think they could be any worse than what we have? In all honesty, I said, do you think they could be any worse than what we have? I said, or is it a case that you are still stuck in a mindset of, oh, well, better the devil you know? I said, because that's what the likes of Simon Harris and Richard Bruton and O'Riordan and those scumbags, that's what they rely on. Better the devil you know. Whereas I said, if we were to have a Dáil, for example, in which every candidate was a genuine independent, would it be any more chaotic or incompetent than what we already have to endure?
That's actually a great point, because that's exactly Ming Flanagan's poster slogan is Ming, who started after the financial crash as this kind of fucking left rock star who was going to come into the Dáil and shake things up, is now, his campaign poster is Ming, he understands the job. So it's like what you're saying.
I mean, again, it's kind of the Catherine Connolly who I've been banging on about a lot, or Paul Murphy bullshit, you know? Oh, but look at us, look how alternative we are. Paul Murphy called his baby they, Paul's baby they, them. Paul calls baby they, them, yeah? And, you know, look how alternative we are, yeah? And how alternative, you know, how you know, etc. And, you know, that woman in the golf club is somebody who you need to pay attention to. Because when you can get into that constituency, then Fine Gael are fucked. And they're not, I don't believe realistically that we have completely bored our way in there yet. I do want to be optimistic to people and say, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, that woman would be going, oh, look at all those far right, ha ha, you know, fucking Lula characters. When they're now saying, well, you don't know what to be doing. That means that there's much more doubt and cynicism in their heads about what the canteen and RTE is telling them. So that's very positive. I want to say I view that conversation with that woman as very positive. Can I emphasize that? I'm not being despondent. The opposite. Yeah. You get me?
Yeah, no, I do get you. But I do think if you like, the Goldfish Bowl has been expanding. Like you know, I do like, I feel there's more openness to some of the things that we're talking about, even though on the flip side is that people don't really agree with us, but they're kind of saying, well, I don't agree with you, but I'm not reaching immediately for the far right label. We need to cancel you, kind of thing.
Well, I tell you something, people who've been real catalysts in this and who have been real agents of change, in a tarot sense almost, have come in like a wild card, is the Burkes again. And the reason for that is a lot of people, like Golfwoman, look at the Burkes and they see what is obvious, that they are respectable, clean living, well turned out, well educated and articulate people. In other words, the Burkes are their kind of people. They're clean living, decent folk. And yet they're being pilloried and vilified at every corner. And Golf Lady is looking at this and going, this does not add up. And she's right, it doesn't add up. And the reason why is because the Burkes found themselves on the wrong side of a death cult based on castration and mutilation of children. That's what went wrong.
There's a side point there, because that Golf Lady is trying to figure out, could this ever happen?
Absolutely. Brilliant. Well done. And I hadn't actually made that connection. Absolutely. She's 100% right. Golf Lady in Hoth is looking at the Burkes and saying, if that happens to them, are we next? And the answer to her is a very big fucking yes. We are next. We are next to that. Enoch Burke is a political prisoner. He is a prisoner of conscience. And I remember saying it to John, to John Waters. I was walking up the beach last year in the middle of the winter, and it occurred to me, and I was very disturbed by it, and I actually got very upset by it. I was just walking out the beach behind my house to go up to Hoth to have dinner in a restaurant in Hoth, and it was dark, and it was cold, and it suddenly occurred to me, Enoch Burke is a prisoner of conscience. And if you look at Czechoslovakia, which was one of the worst countries for all, Kafka came out of Czechoslovakia. Communist Czechoslovakia always found the legal hooks to jail indefinitely people who were awkward. And that's what they've done with Enoch Burke. It's like Czechoslovakia. They have found the legal hooks to jail him. Oh, well, They're saying he's in contempt of court. But what the fuck happened to put him into contempt of court? How did we get to this point? How are we at this point where that educated and articulate and clean living and decent young man is in jail for nearly a year? Then the system is fucked up and not the young man.
You're very activated on the Burke subject.
I love the Burkes because they're courageous. They are people of great conviction and courage and integrity. I've also noticed that they've toned down in the past year or so, they've toned down the overtly anti-gay man talk. So what the Burkes are now, so they've actually changed their spiel. What they're actually saying now is that they're anti-LGBT. Cool. I'm anti-LGBT. As a gay man, I have to be anti-LGBT. It's a misrepresentation of what we're all about. I'm anti-LGBT.
Mm-hmm. Okay, last final question. Have you been out canvassing for the old Andy Heisman?
No. I've been in the gym. I've been doing the gym. I have to stay at home for various personal reasons. I can't really go out that far. But Andy's going to get a good vote from it. Sorry, Heisman. Sorry. Thomas Sheridan's Law. The only one of the politicians who I'll refer to by his first name is John Waters, because John is a friend of mine. But Heisman will get a good vote from me. Don't worry.
Good
stuff. Here in Dublin.
Okay, we're running at 1 hour 15, so we're just going to wrap it up. And thanks a million to Christian Morris. Just want to say once again, Christian Morris TV on Odyssey. Go there. I'll put a link when this is over into his channel. And just say thank you, Christian. Brilliant chatting with you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Now I will end the stream.